The Byronhag estate was filled with whispers. Servants spoke quietly, sharing the shocking news. Did you hear? Lady Juliana has been found. Lady Juliana? One servant asked, eyes wide. Yes, the Archduke's younger sister. She went missing in the forest a long time ago, but I thought she was dead. Shoo! Don't say such things, the older servant warned. Her ladyship must be so happy. She has been searching for years, and now it's finally over. A grand carriage stopped in front of the estate. Inside, a young woman hesitated before stepping out. She looked up at the large mansion, her hands shaking slightly. Come, we've arrived, the coachman said. The large doors opened, and a group of servants stood waiting. The butler stepped forward. Welcome, Lord Stefan, he said with a respectful bow. Then he turned to the young woman. And welcome home, Lady Juliana. Juliana's heart pounded. Home. The word felt strange. She had spent years suffering without a family, without a place to belong. Now, standing in front of the grand estate, she realized her old life as Gris Benedict was gone. She was Lady Juliana now, and there was no going back. The grand room had been left untouched for years. Everything was the same, as if time had stopped. She stood still, taking it all in. This was your room. Everything has been kept just the same, the maid said before turning away. I'm going to speak with Lady Byronhag. Make yourself at home. Juliana stepped forward, breathing deeply. How long, just how long had she waited to breathe such clean air? The scent of polished wood, fresh linens, and the crisp evening breeze filled her lungs. Then a voice echoed outside. Victor has arrived. She flinched. Victor? Yes, Victor Byronhag. He's your older brother and the head of this house. Her heart pounded. She had heard of Archduke Byronhag, even in the place she used to live. But something about that name Byronhag felt too familiar. The door creaked open. A tall man entered, his gaze sharp and unreadable. Happy to see your brother after so long? Juliana stiffened. And no, I was just. What do you mean? No. His voice was calm but cold. She lowered her head, unable to answer. You're supposed to be happy, he said, stepping closer. Because I need you to be the real Juliana. Her fingers trembled slightly. If you try, he'll be of great help to you too. Try at what? She asked hesitantly. At being his real sister. Her breath caught. So this Juliana person, she's someone you need, my lord, she whispered. He didn't respond. But I'm not the girl you're looking for. All I've ever been is a maid in a brothel, she admitted, her voice steady. My only wish is for you to let me return to where I came from. Silence. He studied her carefully before murmuring. She's very upstanding for a girl who grew up in a place like that, for a peasant. He turned away. Stay the night here. Rest well, Juliana. The door closed, leaving her in the quiet room that was supposed to be hers. But to Juliana, this place was as foreign as the name she now carried. Juliana lay on the soft bed, sinking into the plush mattress. Her body ached from the long hours spent in the carriage. I'm exhausted, she murmured, stretching her limbs. It had been so long since she last slept on a proper bed. When was the last time? She couldn't even remember. As she turned her head, she caught a glimpse of a man outside the window. Ah, it's that man from yesterday, she thought. His presence felt imposing even from a distance. He stood tall, dressed in armor. The air around him was heavy with purpose. I guess he's going to war, she whispered. Then, a memory surfaced. She gasped softly. I remember now. I remember when I first heard the name Victor Byronhag. A distant voice echoed in her mind. A mother, this letter. Her mother's warm laughter filled her thoughts. Haha, are you worried? There's nothing to fret about, my princess. But, for now, I just want to tell you what love is, her mother continued gently. That passionate feeling that burns so hot it makes your heart ache? I want you to experience that. Juliana clutched the blanket. And that is why your father refused your engagement, her mother had said. She hesitated. I'm just worried it might hurt that boy's feelings. Her mother had smiled fondly. You're such a kind little girl, Gris. A bitter truth settled in her heart. The only time she had ever felt true happiness was when she was the princess of Grandia. Gris Benedict thought to herself, the second daughter of the royal Grandia family. Another name that I go by. The House of Benedict, which had long maintained peace in the country, was wiped out after a sudden act of treason. Only 9 years old at the time, She was lucky enough to survive the hell she was thrust into, however, under the unfamiliar name Maria. What was in store for her next was a life that felt like simply burning to death in a different kind of hell. But even during that difficult time, when she just wanted to give up on everything, she had a reason to keep living, a man muttered. By the way, an informant for the nobility has been snooping around lately, another man asked. What was the name? Grizz. I think he said he was looking for a princess or something, a third man scoffed. If there were a princess to be found in a gutter like this, I would have sold her off already. A woman laughed and teased. Really? How about I pretend to be the princess? The third man snapped. Shut up, you daft wench. Grizz widened her eyes and thought, someone is looking for me? But who? She cleared her throat and asked. So what's the name of this fanciful nobleman? The first man shrugged. I hear he's been spotted hanging around Virenhague Cathedral. The second man furrowed his brow. What was his name again? Johann. No, Johannes. The first man nodded. Johannes of the Virenhague Cathedral. Grizz repeated the name in her head. Johannes. Could he be a relative who survived the war? Or someone loyal to the Benedict family? No one took much interest, and the rumor faded away soon after. But to me, that man was my one and only hope, and that was why she had no choice but to accept Stefan's offer to take her out of that place and bring her here. She woke up and gazed out the window. She got up and walked over to it. The sunlight poured into her eyes, so she shielded them with her hands. She saw birds perched on the windowsill. She stepped forward, taking in her surroundings. It's beautiful here. She swished a bird's feather and fluttered it in the air with her finger. Could this be a small gift from God for living through such hell? Still, I'm sure it's only a brief respite. A young girl stammered. Gee, good morning, Lady Juliana. She turned her face and looked with a questioning expression. And my name is Belen. I shall be serving you from now on. I will do my best to please you, my lady. Grizz hesitated before replying. Oh, yes. Belen made the Grizz stand and took off its dress. Grizz said, I'm not used to this. Belen slid her hand over Grizz's shoulder. Grizz flinched at her hand and said, Oh, hold on. She pressed her belly and added, I'll do the rest. Belen nodded. Oh, of course. Belen quietly walked away, holding the dress in her hands. She clapped her hands. Oh, allow me to go and fetch the dress you are to wear today. She turns and watches Belen leave, holding the dress in her hands. She looks with intense expression and blinks her eyes. She started chuckling when suddenly someone knocked at the door. Grizz asked, Is that Belen? The sound of footsteps grew louder, and someone stepped forward and said, Good morning, Juliana. What great weather we have today. Did you have sweet dreams? He stepped closer and observed her. You are even more beautiful in the light. A woman like you has value anywhere. Grizz forced a small smile but thought to herself, I'd say it's a sign that everything is to go quite well. A servant hurried inside. Lady Virenhague is awake. She wants to see you. Grizz stiffened and thought, Paula Virenhague. If what I remember from the time I was Grandia's princess is correct, on the outside, she presents herself as a powerless woman who has retired from politics. But she protects the Virenhague family with her brilliant mind in place of her husband, who died young on the battlefield. Can I really pull the wool over the eyes of a tactician like Paula Virenhague? But even if I can't, I doubt he would just give up and leave it at that. She clenched her fists and thought, what should I do? Belen ran back into the room. Lady Juliana, I've brought your dress. She turned and gasped. Oh, Lord Stefan. Good morning. Stefan glanced at the dress and smirked. Come to think of it, Juliana did love yellow. Grizz straightened herself. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, Lord Stefan. Belen nodded eagerly. Lady Juliana has finished dressing. Stefan turned toward the door. We have kept Lady Virenhague waiting too long. Let's go. A servant led them forward and opened a door. This is her room. Stefan stepped inside. Mother, I have brought Juliana. Grizz swallowed hard and thought, if Lady Virenhague finds out I've been impersonating Juliana, I will probably be put to death. However, if I displease Stefan by refusing to cooperate, I will probably be put to death anyway. Before that can happen, perhaps I should just seize my chance and run away. A firm voice echoed from inside the room. Enter. Stefan glanced at her sharply. Just so you know, it would be in your best interest not to think of doing anything foolish. An old woman, dressed in a green gown, sat quietly on the sofa. Juliana stared at her with wide, astonished red eyes. After a moment, she turned her face away and said, "Good morning." A slight silence spread across the room. Then the old woman muttered, "So, you found her?" Shivering, Juliana asked, "Where was she?" Stefan flinched slightly before responding. She was living in a hut in the Duchy of Esther, near Virumhage Forest, where she first went missing. "So what?" the old woman asked, her tone flat. Stefan smirked, a hint of something hidden behind his words. "It seems an old woman who lived in the hut found Juliana and took care of her. Unfortunately, the old woman passed away 3 years ago, and Juliana was living on her own when I found her." Juliana looked at him for a moment, her expression a mix of disbelief and sorrow. She lowered her gaze in regret, her voice tinged with frustration as she whispered, "How can he lie so shamelessly? Every word about where we met, the person who raised me, and the place I was living, it's all a lie." The old woman began trembling, her hands clutching the fabric of her green dress tightly. She whispered, Are you really Juliana?" Juliana's eyes widened in surprise. Her voice, it was dry, devoid of both spirit and emotion. Juliana thought, I guess the grief of losing a family member weighs on everyone the same. It's enough to make even this strong woman seem so frail, just like it did to me. Juliana's voice faltered. Aye, Stefan quickly intervened, his voice firm. Unfortunately, she fell from a cliff and lost her memory. So at the moment, she doesn't remember anything. But once she spends some time here, I'm sure her memories will begin to return. I will stay by her side and help her remember. The old woman, her face stern, spoke up. Give us the room, Stefan. They hesitated for a moment, but Stefan smirked slightly. Be a good girl. The old woman stood up, her body stiff with age, and said, Come closer. Juliana slowly stepped forward, her heart pounding. Look me in the eye, the old woman said softly. Juliana squeezed her eyes shut, her emotions swirling inside. She took a deep breath and spoke with a sad tone. I? She paused, unsure. The old woman's gaze was sharp, studying her. How odd. You do indeed resemble Juliana. Juliana's eyes turned red with uncertainty, and she asked, her voice trembling. What does that mean? Does she know I'm not really Juliana? The old woman's voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence. Come closer. What is your favorite food? Juliana hesitated, caught in a tangle of thoughts. She must be thinking of the food Juliana liked when she was little. It would be dangerous if I get caught, but I don't want to sully such a precious memory with my grandmother just to deceive her. After a moment, Juliana answered softly, I like fruit pie. That's actually what I used to like when I was little, but her mind was conflicted. I just don't want to lie to her anymore. The old woman gave her a suspicious look and asked, Do you have any scars I might remember? Juliana's response came quickly. And no, I don't. The old woman chuckled softly. To tell you the truth, it's been so long that I no longer remember myself whether or not Juliana had any scars. I get confused sometimes. I wonder if Juliana ever actually went missing. And if she had, why has she come back now? Juliana opened her mouth to speak, but the old woman interrupted, her voice cold and final. I don't believe that you're Juliana. Juliana's hand froze, a chill running through her as those words hit her. The old woman's tone softened. But I don't think it would be a bad idea to just watch you for now. Perhaps this is also God's will. For the time being, focus on returning to good health. 1 week later, for a week, Juliana had lived in her room like a prisoner. She needed rest to allow her skin condition to heal and become healthy again. The doctor had said, It's an infectious skin disease. It will heal quickly if you just get some fresh air every day. The servant was tying Juliana's hair when she smiled softly. Will you be taking a walk today as usual? Juliana nodded. Yes. She stepped outside with her servant and wandered into the garden. It was peaceful, the air fresh, as she fluttered through the garden like a bird. Ah, the servant said. We've arrived, my lady. This is Virumhage Lake. Juliana stepped closer to the lake, gazing at the serene waters. She sighed. If there is a heaven, I bet it looks like this. Her eyes followed a black butterfly flitting through the air. To see a butterfly, it needs brightly colored wings to hide among flowers and trees. Wouldn't black stand out too much? She smiled softly, thinking aloud. It's just like me. I hope it lives for a long time, without being caught or eaten. Suddenly, a loud crashing sound came from behind, and the butterfly flew away, startled by the noise. What was that noise? Juliana asked, her voice laced with confusion. The servant replied quickly, it must be the sound of the metal gate opening. Without warning, the piece of floor near the lake cracked. Juliana stumbled and fell into the water, gasping. "My lady!" the servant cried out. Juliana's body sank deeper into the lake. She screamed, "And my feet can't touch the ground. It's cold. I can't breathe. Am I going to?" The servant screamed desperately. "Oh no! Lady Juliana! Somebody! Help!" Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.